Ambassador Jeff Bleich. Welcome, everyone. Folks who are tuning in, thank you so much. My name is Manny Yakutiel, and this is the Ambassador Jeff Bleich, who is a man of many talents, much discipline, done a lot in his life, going places, been places, and we are here to talk about the effects of all this on U.S.-Asia relations, as well as a couple other things that we'll be touching on. Manny's Super Civic Cyber Conversations, which you're tuning into now, is our effort to continue to civically engage the public in this time of need. Thank you very much for joining us. After this, I will give you all a link. It's joinhim.org/o/Manny's, and it is the opportunity for you to become a sponsor of Manny's, which we really appreciate it. If you have a question for Ambassador Bleich, you can type it in the Q&A box at any time. You do not have to wait. We'll be taking questions in about 15 minutes, but if you have a question, just go ahead and ask for it. Okay, Ambassador Bleich. First, let's talk about Australia, because that's you have this honorific of ambassador, and you were the American ambassador to Australia. When were you the American ambassador to Australia?
I was there from 2009 to the end of 2013. And honestly, the only people who actually have to call me ambassador are my kids and my college roommates, maybe,
Well, I like it. It makes me feel cool to call you ambassador.
No, you can call me ambassador.
But I'll call you Jeff for the rest. I'll call you Jeff for the rest of this conversation. Then how about it? Can you tell me about what's going on in Afghanistan, in Australia right now? I mean, what's the situation like in Australia? How's the Prime Minister doing there? Kind of what's going on in Australia right now?
Yeah, well, I'd say Australia is sort of where we are, where they were trying to live a normal life for as long as they possibly could, and then have finally recognized that no one escapes this thing. And so they're probably, I'd say, about 2 weeks behind where the U.S. was. So in terms of numbers, in terms of spread, in terms of sheltering in place, and also social anxiety about the situation, they're about there. On the other hand, they're still Australians. For example, my favorite story is Tom Hanks, and he contracted the virus while he was there. He's filming a Elvis biofilm, and apparently while he was in isolation, they rolled a volleyball in with a face on it like Wilson from Castaway, and
oh my God,
he was just keeping him entertained with Aussie humor.
How do you think the Prime Minister's doing in Australia?
I think he's very challenged by this. He's challenged in two ways. He has been a big supporter of the fossil fuel industry, and the wildfires that hit Australia, as you probably remember, during their summer, were devastating and really, gave him a serious.
So long ago.
Yeah, no, it was only 2 months ago. It seems like forever. And so he was challenged by that, and then right on top of it, his leadership is being challenged by the response to the coronavirus.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to PG&E because it's part of the conversation. Then we're going to focus the rest of the conversation on U.S. and Asia. So you are the chair of the board of PG&E. How long have you been the chair of the board?
So I'm chair of the utility board. There are actually two boards. There's a corporate as well, and I've been there for a year. I came in after the devastating 2018 wildfires and then bankruptcy. There was a sense that we needed to bring in some fresh blood to try and turn the company around, and frankly make sure it was doing what it's supposed to do, which is provide safe, reliable, affordable, clean energy to Californians. And you got to get the safety part right, or the rest of them don't matter. So I came in to do that.
And how's that going?
Oh, it's hard. I mean, it's very, very hard work. You come in to a company that has been through that situation, and people internally are traumatized, and there are morale challenges. You don't have a trust. Customers don't trust you. The investors and the media, and others, and there are big challenges that need to be addressed. You've got a infrastructure that was built for the last climate as opposed to the current one,
Yeah.
and you've got to make some big adjustments while you're in bankruptcy,
Yeah.
and all the limitations of that. So, I had a full head of hair before I started this, but
Oh, God.
but I'll tell you, it's um, you don't get popular doing this work, but it's really important work, and
Yeah.
that's why I took.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that. I was heartened to know and to hear that you are on the board, because I know you're such a stand-up guy, and you work so hard. I think what's filtered down to me, just to the average person, is there's some parts of California or municipalities or something that they want to purchase PG&E and basically take over the services. Can you help me understand like what that effort is, and is it happening, and is that realistic, and what do you think of it?
Well, I think when you're in bankruptcy, is one of those chances where you get to consider every option. What is the best way to structure this company? What's the way that you can assure that you align your interests with the interests of every customer of PG&E, and frankly every every citizen
Yeah.
and person who lives in California.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just we're all in this thing together.
Yeah.
And so my sense was that we evaluated all the different plans. There were different approaches proposed, including a state takeover and other things. Eventually, the plan of reorganization that has gotten the up till now approval of everyone has been one which would keep it as a privately owned utility, but with a lot of new conditions on it, and and potentially a set of graduated changes in how it operates in the event that it doesn't meet its promises.
Mm-hmm. And my last question on this is, how has coronavirus affected PG&E? How has it affected its bottom line and its services? And how do you and we talked about this a teeny bit before in the pre-call, but how do you perceive it might affect, the pandemic might affect PG&E's operations in the next, 9 to 12 months?
Yeah, well, look, we're going through what everyone else is going through, which is everyone who works for PG&E who can work from home, is working from home, sheltered in place, and for two reasons. One is social distancing and their own safety and safety of all of us, but also, frankly, we've got a lot of people in the field who have to go out and do their job to ensure that people get energy and get utility services and aren't stranded in the event of power outage in their area or some event. So for all those reasons, we know that they're like healthcare workers who are on the front line. Some of them are likely to contract the disease no matter how careful they are, and they're using every measure you can to protect themselves and protect people that they work with. But if there were a massive spike in cases here, or if there were a natural disaster like an earthquake, we're going to need to have healthy people who can step in. And so we're both keeping people at home, but also thinking about all of our backup plans and training for them. At the same time, I think so we're worried about the employees and customers' safety first and foremost. And the hardest part, I think, is that at the same time we're doing this, we're coming into the California fire season, and not in the next 2 months. And so we've got to keep up all the work of vegetation management, hardening the system, and everything else to reduce the risk of wildfires.
Have you seen an uptick in use of electricity? I mean, I imagine a lot more people are at home and so using their devices, but at the same time, a lot of restaurants and small businesses are closed. So, we've reduced our PG&E greatly, obviously. So where is that? Are you worried about financially about people? Has there been like a net loss or gain of folks using the services of PG&E?
Yeah, no, I don't think, at a time like this, you're just not thinking about, revenues and money. In fact, we've done a number of things where we've said, for example, no one's going to have their power disconnected because they, haven't been able to pay their bill during
Yeah.
this time. Everyone's shuttering in place and
Yeah.
sheltering in place, and we've got to help,
Yeah.
ensure that they stay safe.
That was awesome. Okay, so let's go to U.S.-Asia relations. So
Sure.
I interviewed David Plouffe earlier this week, and he told me that he heard that President Trump has not had a conversation with President Xi Jinping in a month. Premier Xi Jinping. So where are U.S.-Asia relations right now? Vis-a-vis where they have been. How good or bad is it right now?
Yeah, no, I would say that it's that it needs improvement and needs improvement, quickly. Look, there are major differences between the U.S. and China and how we're looking at the world in some important ways. But right now in the pandemic, they were out ahead of us. We can talk about all the things that they did wrong.
Yeah.
For a couple months in Wuhan province, and trying to keep that information from the public. But once they started applying really aggressive measures to address this, they've been transparent with the World Health Organization. They have been effective, frankly, in flattening the curve even before we came up with the term flattening the curve.
Right. Yeah.
Lot to learn from them. They also have ramped up their production levels, and there's a lot that we can get from them at scale now while we're still scaling up ourselves. So there are ways in which cooperating with them and with other countries around the world, we can help reduce this. But we are the two largest economies in the world. The countries with really the just in terms of population, some of the highest stakes, and we should be showing leadership together and showing cooperation in a moment like this.
And is that not happening?
Yeah, look, I don't know whether the president and President Xi have spoken with each other in the past month, but I do know that there used to be just a daily pipeline between the CDC and and their counterpart in China that has not been maintained, and my understanding because of political reasons. And the other aspect of it is
when you say political reasons, what do you mean?
That there was just a general sense that we don't need any favors from China. We don't need their stuff. We can make it ourselves. We've got the best. My sense is no country's got a monopoly on good ideas or good people, and we're on this thing together.
And as it's been clearly displayed, there are supply line issues that actually, we do need China for certain things, and disrespecting them or not asking them for help could put a lot of Americans in danger and put them at risk. When you were ambassador to Australia, can you tell us about some kind of a United States-Asia relation, what the state of U.S.-Asia relations were, and how President Obama maintained those relations?
The U.S.-Asia relation was, part of what was referred to as a rebalance. We had a sense that, look, China and the whole Asia, Indo-Pacific region is the fastest growing economically area in the world. It's the most dynamic area in the world. It's also been one of the most historically fraught areas in the world in terms of rivalries among nations. You think about North and South Korea, Japan, China, Russia, India, Pakistan. At least two of the all the countries that I just mentioned hate at least two of the other countries that I just mentioned. Right? There are a lot of rivalries, so it's a big, growing, dynamic, important area, and we focused heavily on that region. We did really three different things. Some were economic, like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and some of them were diplomatic. We signed a bunch of treaties and created an Asia Pacific Summit. But then there were also military moves where we just started training with everyone, including offering to train with China,
Yeah.
to allow all of our forces to get to know each other and build trust.
Yeah. Amazing. Um, what about India? You know, the Narendra Modi uh, basically told everyone that they had to shelter in place for 3 weeks. There are now reports that there are, you know, hundreds of thousands of people who are trying to go back home but aren't being allowed to get on buses. There was no plan to feed people. Food banks have been, you know, way overextended. And folks are worried about mass pandemonium in a country of over 1 billion people. So what do you think about how the rollout was in India, and if you were still kind of ambassador, kind of how would you be helping in this moment?
Yeah. No, I mean, I can't assess right now, you know, which news reports are accurate and which ones aren't. You know, everyone's moving in uncharted territory right now, and there are going to be, you know, mistakes made in various regions. But my sense is that um, folks just assumed that there was kind of a authoritarian streak in the Indian leadership that might be, you know, in their view, helpful at this time. I think this has both revealed that, you know, the Indian population is, you know, very much regionalized, very much independent, democratic, and in their orientation, aligned, and not easily told what to do. Which, in a moment like this, is difficult. You saw the same thing in Italy. You saw the same thing on Bondi Beach, frankly, in Australia, and you've seen the same thing in parts of the United States.
But interestingly, you're not seeing it in San Francisco. I feel like people in our city have been very good at following orders. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I think, you know, there people like to caricature different parts of the country and different um, uh, perspectives. I think um, San Franciscans, you know, we really know how to come together in a disaster. Come through fires, we've come through earthquakes, we've come through some very, very difficult things. And in crisis, we put aside all of our differences. And we have, you know, acquitted ourselves very well in this crisis so far, knock wood. But you have to keep it up for much longer. And frankly, we're coming into one of the toughest times psychologically for people.
Why?
The first couple weeks or 3 weeks, there's a sense of fear, but also a sense of, you know, there are things that you missed about being home, and there are silver linings that you cling to. After a few weeks, I've talked to people who, you know, were, you know, sheltered in place for a couple months in China, and you know, they started to go a bit stir crazy. And so really self-care is important, and we've got to look out for each other and reach out to each other. Which is why I'm so glad you're doing this, man.
Yes,
really.
well, thank you. Yeah, and people have been appreciating it and enjoying it. I just have one or two more questions, and then if you have questions for Ambassador Jeff Bleich, you can type it in the Q&A box. Now is a good time to do it. So you're also on the board of the Fulbright. And what's going on with the Fulbright right now?
That's been, I told you, I'm in the middle of every neurologic issue.
Yeah, you've chose your boards interestingly.
Yeah, well, you know, I care a lot about exchange programs as a way of building understanding, because at moments like this, it's actually been extraordinarily helpful that Fulbright, for example, has produced over 70, you know, heads of state, heads of government, and hundreds of ministers in different countries around the world have been through Fulbright, have a good feeling about the United States, have friends that who can reach them. And it really is a way of connecting us and helping us solve problems together. So I'm a big believer in the Fulbright program. It's been tragic. We've had to bring thousands of Fulbrighters home just because we couldn't provide, we couldn't assure their safety overseas. We know that bringing them home before the end of their Fulbright year is difficult. There are a number of people thousands who've received Fulbright grants who don't know if they're going to be able to begin in the fall. And then when you add to it, you know, there are situations where it's probably safer to be in a particular country than back in your home. And so we've given ambassadors the authority to allow Fulbrighters to remain
Huh.
as a way of protecting them. So, for example, like South Korea right now, the
Yeah.
pandemic has largely abated. And if you were going to go from South Korea into Manhattan right now, and have to go through all of the travel that's involved in it,
Yeah.
I think that's probably not the best solution. So
Yeah.
we've empowered the ambassadors all around the world to make these sorts of judgments.
And then we just, my last question is about Medifact, which is an organization
Yeah.
that you were part of, you founded, and actually the launch was at Manny's, or one of the launch events. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about that and also why it's so useful, especially right now. And then
Yeah.
questions, guys, type your questions in the Q&A box.
Yeah. So Medifact was created as a way to address the disinformation on the internet. People just don't know what to believe.
Yeah.
And they don't have a trusted source. So this is created by an Australian who just wanted to get things right. And so he said, well, start with science, because things either prove or they don't prove. They solve or they don't solve.
Yeah.
People can have opinions about politics. They can have opinions about what someone meant by certain words. But in terms of whether something is true or not from a scientific perspective, we're seeing that in real time right now with CDC and their projections about coronavirus. They weren't kidding around. They know how to do this work properly.
Yeah.
And so he said people could type in any question that they wanted, and he would find experts around the world, different political parties, different countries, no bias, in one way or another, and they could answer scientific questions.
Yeah.
And so now, if we ever needed a moment where there is a trusted source on scientific data, I think Medifact is it.
Yeah.
And so, it was prescient. I don't think he did it because he anticipated a pandemic. But he addressed questions like, do vaccinations cause autism? Is there, a proven link between them? And he was able to give an answer that not only took into account all the different views that different scientists have, but backed it up so that people could see what the basis was.
Yeah. So you just have a knack of getting yourself in the room at the right moments. You're the chair of the board of PG&E in the middle of what must be one of the toughest time PG&E. You're on the board of the Fulbright Fellowship in the middle of an international global pandemic. You're ambassador to Australia, and now U.S.-Asia relations are quite strained. And you founded a startup that's all about getting disinformation out of science and tech science and biomedical. So
yeah, I'm a glutton for punishment.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to questions. Trevor Hill. Hello, Trevor. Acknowledging the challenges, what are you doing in your role as chairman of the utility board at PG&E to ensure the company is successful in fixing its catastrophic safety record?
Yeah. No, I think the most important thing we can do is be safe, and we have to make hard decisions to do that. So last year with the public safety power shutoffs, I know a lot of people struggle because of those, and it was a very difficult decision to make. On the other hand, we had to ask ourselves a hard question. Yeah. Can we safely deliver power under certain weather conditions and do it safely? Mm-hmm. Can we do that? And the answer was no. Now, there are certain weather conditions right now where just because there is so much fuel on the ground, the winds are too high, it's been too dry. There's too little humidity. Yeah. And under those conditions, meteorologists, people who are fire experts, and everyone that we talked to, we worked with Cal Fire, we worked with California OES, the Office of Emergency Services, we worked with meteorologists, who worked with everybody, and came up with a formula that was agreed upon and is part of a wildfire safety plan. Mm-hmm. And we turn off the power when everyone agrees that the conditions are right to turn off the power. But the effect last year is that, if people remember, in 2017 and 2018, in both of those fire seasons, over 10 million acres were burned associated with utility fires. And in both cases, dozens of people tragically perished in these fires. Yeah. And our commitment was, to turn that around. Yeah. And last year, we cut the number of acres that were burned by more than half. And thank God, no one perished in any fire last year. It was hard, and we all had to make sacrifices.
Yeah.
But those public safety power shutoffs were literally lifesavers.
Yeah. Will wants to know, what, if any, structural reforms do you wish you had pursued in 2009 when working at the White House?
Structural reforms. 2009, you have to remember what 2009 was. We came into office in the midst of a global financial crisis where we're conservatives. We're talking about nationalizing the banks. And people said if we did everything right, we would have a deep recession that would last for years. And if we did anything wrong, we would plunge into a depression. And at the same time, we had 2 wars that were going in the wrong direction. And we had a new president and a lot of expectations that he could solve each problem that he had run on, including healthcare, including climate change and others, in his first year. So I think we had a lot on our plate. But what would I have done differently? I'd say the one thing that I would have done differently, and perhaps it was a bandwidth issue, perhaps it was we assumed too much, but I think we had this tremendous momentum and grassroots effort in the Obama 2008 campaign. A lot of people who had volunteered and had done tremendous work to help the president get elected. And there was a real desire within the White House to maintain that volunteer effort and to start solving problems through crowdsourcing and through the same networks that had helped with the election.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we capitalized on that. I don't think we maintained that momentum. In fact, what you saw was the other side, crafting their own, their town halls and on healthcare, and planting stories about death squad and things like that.
Yeah.
And really, I think we allowed some of that critical momentum to dissipate. So structurally, I would have that would have been one of the issues. I think in terms of some of the other things that haven't gone the way that I wish they would have gone, a lot of those were within Congress.
Yeah.
And there's limitations on what the president could do with that after the midterm election, where we no longer controlled Congress.
Right. Last question from me is, what I'm really nervous about, kind of damage done to our standing internationally from this president. If we win in a couple months in November, what do you think the next president can do to restore our place in the international world order and restore respect for the United States?
I think it's going to be a tremendous set of challenges. We had a bit of that when President Obama was elected. If you remember, the world community had largely turned in the latter years of the Bush administration.
Yeah.
And I remember Warren Buffett saying, look, there are about 100 different moves that we would need to make. These sorts of treaties, repairing these relationships, this kind of and he had a list of about 30 things that we ought to do. He said, or else we could elect this guy Obama president, and people would forgive us because it would be such a surprise, and he is such a quality person.
Yeah.
I don't think we have that same luxury this time.
Yeah.
I think we use that opportunity once, and now we are we're in strategic competitions where others are moving ahead of us. We've antagonized allies, and those are hard relations to repair. They're like a marriage, people will stay together, but if you betray them, if you disrespect them, they don't forget it easily.
Right.
And there are a number of environmental challenges, climate change being one of them, and really the failure of democracies to live up to their potential that have to be repaired, that require a lot of work and a lot of trust.
Yeah. And
having worked in an environment with little trust and a lot of work, I'll tell you, it's very hard so the next president has a major set of challenges, but I think one way we do it better than we're doing it now is to tap into that goodwill. The American or working to save our lives together right now.
Right.
If we can tap into that energy and the energy that we've brought to other crises, I think we can turn this around.
Yeah. Well, Jeff Bleich, thank you so much for the time. For folks who have tuned into the call, if you could please take a second and go to www.joinit.org/o/Manny's. That's www.joinit.org/o/Manny's. And consider becoming a sponsor and supporting my small business. We are closed right now, and so we do need your help to continue to allow us to do this programming for you, for the community, for free, for everyone. And so please do consider becoming a sponsor. It's $36 a month, and we really could use the help right now. Jeff, thank you so much for the time. Thank you, Sam, for being the operator. And please tag us at Welcome to Manny's. And I also want to thank Jupiter and Ram from our team. Jeff, thank you very much, and I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Manny. You rock.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.